Boatworks today is sponsored by Total Boat and Alexial Yacht Coatings, as well as supported by the generosity from the beautiful folks over on Patreon. Thank you so much. So, good morning, everybody. I suppose it could be evening, depending on what time you're watching this and what part of the world you're from. But in any event, my name is Andy with Boatworks today, and this week I wanted to do something that I've been putting off for far too long. Now, as you may or may not be aware, my family and I moved from Wisconsin over to Michigan about a couple of months ago, specifically to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And unfortunately, since that move, which is still a bit of a work in progress, I've actually spent more time away from here than I have actually here. Now, since we're finally at least getting to the point where we're somewhat settled, I have been dying to explore this area. Now, this area isn't completely foreign to me. I kind of grew up maybe about an hour and a half from here. So although I'm somewhat familiar of this area, I'm not familiar with the area, and I have just been itching to be able to do a little bit of exploring, see just kind of what the area looks like, but specifically take a look at what the marinas have and also what kind of potential used boats might be available, at least in my immediate area. Right about now, a few of you may be thinking, wait a minute, doesn't he already have a project boat that's kind of been shelved for the last couple of months? And yes, you are correct. And that's just a temporary situation until I get the new shop up and running. I'm kind of on hold with that. But what I do anticipate is that the Bertram will be finished before Christmas, and then what am I going to work on? So with winters being what they are around here, basically if you don't have your next project pulled into the shop or at least staged before the snow flies, you're not going to be moving or pulling anything into the shop until late spring. So now is that time to be looking. So after a bit of looking around online, there's actually quite a few places here that pique my interest. Now there's a few that are west of me, and then there's quite a few more that are east of me. Unfortunately, the problem with east and west is, well, they're in opposite directions, and I can't cover all of this in one day. So I think the best way to approach this is essentially going to be to divide and conquer. So for this video, I'm going to focus on the areas that are going to be west, and then next week we'll take a little bit of a longer drive and take a look at the areas that are east. So for this video, the two areas that I'm going to be focusing on specifically are going to be Black River Harbor, which again, something that I've always been familiar with or heard of, but I've never been. And then lastly is going to be Saxon Harbor. Now, Saxon Harbor in particular has seen a lot of changes, specifically in the last 5 years when they had a major washout that completely destroyed and flattened that entire marina. But we'll touch more on that here in a bit. First stop is going to be Black River Harbor, which I believe is just outside of Ironwood, Michigan. So going into this, I wasn't quite sure what exactly to expect. Maybe I should have done a bit more homework, but evidently, Black River Harbor is a refuge harbor only, meaning that there really isn't a quote-unquote marina per se, but there are areas where you can tie up and spend the night or the week or however long you want to stay. So all along the wall on the left here, there's cleats where you can come in and tie up. I believe they keep this channel dredged out deep enough for sailboats to come in. I remember, quite a few years ago that this used to be a pretty popular destination for sailors. And as long as you are a powerboat, you can also fit underneath this bridge, and then this transient docking also extends further down the river. Now, I don't believe there's any power hookups here per se. I think this is kind of like a stepping stone for, I guess, a second or third destination. But even still, this is absolutely gorgeous, well protected. I mean, it might get a little uncomfortable with some of the swells if we had a big storm coming in, but I mean, I could see myself spending a couple nights here and having one hell of a good time. So unfortunately, the only boat here is this old girl, and unfortunately, she's not for sale, so that makes stop number one a big old giant swing and a miss. Hey Siri, give me directions to Saxon Harbor.
Siri not available. Your iPhone is not connected to the internet.
Ah, lovely. So as I had mentioned in the beginning of this video, Saxon Harbor had a pretty major setback back in July of 2016. The short story, or at least from what I was able to gather, is that essentially within an 8-hour period, upwards of 14 inches of rain fell. And for this kind of, which is normally an entire summer's worth of rain, at least for this area. So to have that amount of rain come down in that short period of time, really the infrastructure just was not there to handle it. And the way that it was described is that essentially a wall of water and mud came rushing down this river, took out this bridge, and then just basically jumped the bank and wiped out everything in its path going right out to the bay. And after a 3-year restoration project, the marina itself opened back up in August of 2019, and then the campground opened up that following spring of 2020. Now, when you're looking around here, again, this is 21, this is 5 years later, there's still remnants of all of the washout basically everywhere. All of the old debris is still piled up in areas. And 5 years later, you can still see spots where I'm presuming some of the mudslides occurred. Now, this is an absolutely gorgeous area. The way that they rebuilt this is just spot on. And walking the docks here or looking around the area, you would never even suspect that really anything ever happened. One thing I did kind of notice, though, is that there are an awful lot of Chris Crafts in this marina for whatever reason. Well, come to find out, Chris Craft, the company, was originally founded in Michigan. Go figure. So while the marina right now is pretty much full, ironically enough, there isn't well, there was one boat that is for sale here, but it didn't really fit what I was looking for. But ironically, that is the only boat that is for sale here. I'm 0 for 2 today. I don't know what's going on. Well, hopefully next week I have a little bit better luck when I head east. Now, just as a little bit of a heads up, I'm planning to hit like the Houghton Hancock area, Eagle Harbor, Copper Harbor, Presque Isle possibly. And, well, there's one famous marina at the very, very tip called Whitefish Point. Now, I'm sure we all are familiar with that because of one certain little ship called the Edmund Fitzgerald that went down back in 75, 74. But I might make that a separate trip on its own because there is a really, really cool maritime museum there that I would love to go take a look at. So the hunt continues for the next project boat, but I think this is going to be a good ending point for this video. So as always, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it interesting. And if you did, please hit that thumbs up button. If you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Thank you in advance. I really appreciate that. If you have any questions, comments, or if you've ever been to this area, please let me know down in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for your time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.
This has been a Boatworks Today production.